Welcome to each of you. We are glad that you are here, and I have to tell you, I'm pleased to see conversation about the Ticketmaster issue. I'm from Tennessee, and needless to say, there was quite a bit of conversation around this, and it was not just the Taylor Swift concert. There were several last year, and I think, Professor Rose, to your point, it just points out how widespread this is. It's not a single issue. It is something that when you look at this, you have to say, is divestiture what is going to work, and to separate this. And of course, we do have some artists that are moving forward and are saying they will not sell through Ticketmaster, and then negotiating separately with venues and doing a good old-fashioned private sector solution to this without the government. They're opting to change the way that they do business because of Live Nation, Ticketmaster, and the control that they have. Mr. Del Rahim, welcome back to committee.
Thank you, Senator.
Yes, I want to talk with you just a moment about some of the mergers and the trend we've seen out of the FTC blocking mergers. We've been through a situation in this administration with an entity out of Tennessee trying to buy another entity, and the process was laborious and did not serve the marketplace well because of the demands that were coming from the FTC. And of course, the overreach that we're seeing there from the FTC really came to light just recently with the Microsoft Activision. They failed to be able to block that merger, but there seems to be this attitude that any merger is bad. And I have found that so interesting, because they're not all bad, they're not all good, but there should be proper weight and review that is given to this. And one of the things that has interested me as we've talked to Tennessee companies is how they view some of these actions as having such a negative impact on the marketplace. And I'd love for you to speak to that for just a couple of minutes as to what you're seeing and how you're viewing that.
Sure. Thank you, Senator. It's a good point. I have been critical of some of the procedures, and I think we need to look at government design, and that's perfectly appropriate, I think, for this committee. We have 2 federal agencies plus 50 plus other antitrust agencies with the state AGs, all who do great work. The Federal Trade Commission has incredible public servants, great folks. But the procedures, just as Justice Kagan noted in the Axon case this past term, which said the Federal Trade Commission may know something about competition, but it certainly doesn't know anything about separation of powers, where the parties were not allowed to sue until the end of the administrative process, but now they do have an ability to go to court and seek redress. The due process is really important. And when you have an agency that brings, again, without commenting on any particular transaction, just procedurally, you have the review process. They have a different legal standard than the Justice Department without any statutory direction from Congress of what agency reviews what transaction. But arbitrarily, some of them, I was involved in them because of the clearance process. The legal standard to get an injunction in court is different for the 2 agencies, arguably a lower standard for the FTC. 1. 2, when they bring administrative litigation before an administrative law judge in their FTC commission, when they lose, you appeal back to the commission. Well, guess what? It's the same commission who reported out a complaint. Again, procedurally, it makes no sense, because in 40 years, guess how many times they have lost an appeal of their own laws?
Yeah.
0. And then you go to court. So in a real world where parties are dealing with ticking fees, high interest rates of deals, you now have to factor in 2 years to now go to a circuit court to seek your legal redress. And I think when you have an overreach by the government, the Supreme Court, I don't know how many 9-0 decisions, but Justice Kagan's decision just last year in the Axon is just one. And and there's more cases of those. That's not good for the enforcement of the law.
Yeah, let me ask you this also. The 2020 guidelines that we've already discussed here today, why do you think FTC and DOJ was moving so aggressively to remove those guidelines?
I don't know. I don't want to guess. The DOJ did not. To their credit, they did not withdraw those guidelines because they, I think, recognized there was a lot of work that went into it. It was widely accepted. Many experts, including Professor Rose, Shapiro, Salop, and others, provided comment. And it was well regarded. And I think the statement of the commissioners who withdrew the guidelines speaks for itself. There's a fundamental misunderstanding of the law about the burden shifting and the difference between pro-competitive effects and efficiencies, I think, is one of the reasons. But they withdrew them without having another one in place to provide some guidance for the courts. And White might question if some of the litigations may have been more successful had those guidelines remained there.
Well, and I think that the way Mr. Cantor and Ms. Khan moved forward aggressively to move away from those guidelines is something that was not lost on a lot of people. My time has expired, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Well, thank you very, very much, Senator Blackburn, for all your work in this area, and thank you for being here. Next.